Shalom. I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushai, Bahashem, Racha Kodash. I want to give double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone, because those are the men who I learned this truth from through the spirit and power of Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushai. Yahweh is the true name of the God of Israel. Yahushai is who the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ, but his one and only true name is Yahushai. And pretty much there's a great sifting going on. And remember what it says in I believe it's First Peter the 4th chapter, and it mentions something to the effect of judgment must begin at the house of Israel first. Also in Ezekiel the 9th chapter, from like verses 4 through 6, you know, it talks about that judgment must begin at the sanctuary of the Lord's house. So judgment ultimately begins with the men that was, you know, entrusted with this truth first. You know, first beginning with the apostles, you know, on down of Great Millstone. Even you guys that's not officially Great Millstone members, but you're pushing forth the correct gospel and doctrine that you learned from the men of GMS, beginning with Apostle Tahar on down. The Lord entrusted us, aka he has given us talents, gifts, through the gift of faith, through his blood and sacrifice, to push forth this gospel. But what happens is we dealing with predestination here. So the scriptures talk about how 2/3 of the nation of Israel and just unbelieving Israelites that come into the truth, but then for whatever reason they get offended, or they start putting the cares of this life above their reasonable service. They're not doing what Yahushua said to do, which is to occupy, meaning remain busy in the ministry till he comes. They start making excuses up. They start doubting the Lord. And it starts small. You know, they may keep it to themselves, and then over a process of time, they become disenchanted. And that could happen to any one of us. And that's why, you know, this truth is scary, man, because you don't know what the Most High got predestinated for you. You don't know if he predestinated you to be in the truth, you know, 1 week in the camp, all the way up to 10 years in the camp, all the way up to 20 plus years in the camp. I've seen dudes that I used to watch, you know, the old main camp videos, GMS on Street 21, GMS on Street 22. Yeah, I remember that. All right. When them elder brothers and the apostles, he used to come to the camp, you know, like an hour after the camp start up. And a lot of them faces, matter of fact, a lot of them guys, I never got to meet in person. All right. Why? Because they fell out the truth. But if they were still around, they would have been in the camp over 14 years, but they're not here no more. And then the elder brother Shaman, he uploaded the GMS, you know, the classics, GMS, well, you got the Passover 2014 video. Oh, GMS Soldiers of Faith, pretty much. It's like a documentary brothers did before I joined the camp, because I only been in the camp since 2017. All right, a little tiny 8 years. But a lot of them dudes, when you watch the documentary, they're not even in the camp no more, majority of them. All right. And even the brothers that's around, that's been tested, you know, they had to go through their trials and tribulations. They may have suffer wrongfully, but then they was justified overall through their faith by their works. You know, they're still around. The only ones I really see in that clip is like 3 brothers out of more than maybe 20. All right. You know, Judah, the big bro, Judah, you know, the elder brother, MAWAAHBA. I'm not sure if Shaman's face was shown in the documentary or not, but, you know, he was around. Rapah, you know, the elder Rapah that used to be in the main camp. I think he's in GMS Birmingham. But, yeah, it's only a little bit of people that's still around, you know. Recently, you just had a dude that fell out the camp. So this is scary, man. This is a scary thing. When your trial and tribulation come, you're supposed to pray to the Lord. You got to remember the scriptures, and you got to understand, look, if I stop glorifying Yahweh and Yahweh Shai and teaching this correct gospel and doctrine I learned from the apostles of Great Millstone through the Holy Spirit, there's a consequence. I could get put to death. And these dudes that fall out, they don't realize that. Why? Because the Most High has them blinded because of their emotions, because of their lack of faith, ultimately predestination. Now, I want to read Matthew the 25th chapter, and I also want to read Luke the 19th chapter, because it goes into the same thing. I'm not reading the whole chapter. I'm just going into the parable of the talents, and in the book of Luke 19, it's pretty much the same thing reiterated, but it calls it the parable of money usage, all right? Which the money is this truth, you know, your talents, your gifts. So I'm going to read a little bit of this in the AI overview, right? It says Matthew 25 in the Bible presents 3 parables that emphasize the importance of being prepared, faithful, and merciful in anticipation of Hamashiach's return. These parables, the 10 virgins, the talents, and the sheep and the goats, highlight themes of watchfulness, stewardship, and selfless service. They serve as a call to action, urging believers, which who would be the believers from the seed line of Israel, the elect of the nation of Israel, right? Just because you know you're an Israelite, that don't mean that you have the breath, as it says in Ezekiel the 37th chapter, which the breath is the Holy Spirit, the true understanding. It goes on to say, urging believers, right, the Israelites, that's in the truth, to live lives that reflect their faith and prepare for the final judgment. I'm going to read this, the parable of the talents, Matthew the 25th chapter from verses 14 through 30. This parable illustrates the importance of using the gifts and opportunities entrusted to believers. So Yahweh Shai entrusted us with this truth, meaning what? He left us in charge. He left us, beginning with the apostles of Great Millstone on down, as his ambassadors, as the defenders of the gospel. So if you start teaching this truth, and the Most High, through Yahweh Shai, have given you this privilege of being on the planet Earth, because to have life is privilege, and then ultimately to have this truth is a privilege. And how do we have this privilege? Because of Yahweh Shai's blood and sacrifice. So if the Most High and Yahweh Shai entrusted you with this truth, and you go back into the world, you stop teaching, then that's not good, man. You're going to end up being a part of the lake of fire. And that's a physical, painful judgment you're going to have to go through. You might not even make it to the lake of fire. You might just get put to death. All right? So it goes on to say, yep, the servants who invested their talents and increased their master's wealth were rewarded. So in order for us to get rewarded, as it says in Revelation, the 22nd chapter, we have to endure to the end by staying in this truth and occupying, right? It goes on to say, while the one who hid his talents, guys that came into the truth, but then they got disenchanted, you know, they got emotional for whatever reason, and they forgot as individuals, you got to glorify Yahweh and Yahweh Shai, they're going to end up being destroyed, right? Goes on to say, while the one who hid his talent was punished. This highlights the need for active discipleship and faithful stewardship, all right? So there you go. So let's get into it. I did a lot of talking, but it's around the scriptures. Matthew the 25th chapter, I'm gonna start at 14, and I'm also going to read Luke 19, them verses up there. Parable of the talents, right? And I may or may not switch from the KJV to the NLT. All right, Matthew 25:14, for the kingdom of heaven is as a man traveling into a far country, who called his own servants and delivered unto them his goods, right? Now, the goods would be what? The understanding of this truth, which requires the Holy Spirit, right? It says, and unto one he gave 5 talents, right? Now, I actually want to go into this word talents just to see if it links up with the lesson, because I don't think I ever went into the word talents, right? So that's Strong's G 5007. I'm going to let the Greek word play.
Strong's G 5007. Talenton, right?
Yep, let's see, let's go down here. Okay. Yep, it says, let's see. Yeah, I mean, pretty much, metaphorically speaking, it's just going into how much understanding the Most High has given a particular Israelite man, all right? Because not all men is on the same level, right? The apostles of Great Millstone, they have the whole doctrine, down packed, including the secular history, manners and customs. I mean, you name it, the creation story, right? Me, I'm a young brother. I try to study to the best of my abilities, but, I will have a long ways to go to get on that type of level. But then above me, you got like the elders. Then above them, you got like the bishops. So they got like the most talents, right? But ultimately, you talk about Israelite men that's been given the duty to teach this truth, having a street ministry, doing your videos, live streams, constantly edifying, right? Okay, continuing on, 5 talents to another 2 and to another 1. That all links up with everything I just said, right? Not every man is the same when it comes to teaching this knowledge, right? Some brothers is good at the ancient Paleo-Hebrew, doing lessons on that. Other brothers is good with the secular history. Other brothers are good with the basics and what the scriptures call the milk. Other brothers can go into all of those topics, right? They could go into chapter breakdowns, the creation story, without having to look at notes, because they become fluent in it, because they're constantly occupying. They're constantly always going into it. Others could link up current events or Bible prophecies. See, these are different talents. Other brothers, like the elder Manasseh Cubans, he can find Israelites that's not even a part of camps, that don't have street ministries, but they have their own vain, worthless opinions. He could go on TikTok or YouTube or any platform, as well as other brothers, right? And use their negative examples on how not to be in the truth to make edifying videos, to warn the flock. To tell them, look, this is not the mindset you should be in. And he's defending the gospel at the same time. So you have different talents. You got another brother, I forget his name, but he's in like the San Francisco Bay Camp. He does like the illustrations of like spiritual power, right? So, yeah, brothers got different talents. All right. So that's what the talents is going into. What gift did the Lord give you in order to spread forth this gospel and to magnify the word so that the end could come? So it goes on to say, and to another one, to every man according to his several ability, right? And straightway took his journey. Then he that had received the 5 talents went and traded with the same and made them other 5 talents. So he flipped it, right? It's like an investment, right? You and your other like board members or your co-workers, not even co-workers, like just your friends, y'all all come together and you go to the investor, which would be Yahushua. He gives you the money to invest with, and then you start building a house, right? Now you got like a rental unit, and now you starting to flip the money. It's a large investment that leads to profit if you're doing what you're supposed to be doing and you stick to the game plan, right? So this individual had 2 talents and flipped it into 5. So it goes on to say, went and traded with the same and made them other 5 talents. And likewise, he that had received 2 talents, he also gained other 2. So these were men that were growing in the truth, right? And another talent, by the way, is like character building lessons, right? Continuing on, but he that had received 1 went and digged in the earth. This is like a guy that know he an Israelite, but he don't do no videos. He don't show his face. Why? Because he's ashamed of the gospel. He just keeps everything to himself. All his years are going past, and he hasn't made that leap of faith yet. Because we all get to that point where after a while, people have to know who you are. You got to show your face. Eventually, you got to show face around the camp. And yeah, you're going to go through your trials and tribulations. You got to bear your cross. Yahushua told us that, right? You have to do these things. You have to take the leap of faith, because If you don't do that, eventually you're going to end up falling off, and you could become a scoffer. All right. It says, and digged it in the earth and hid his Lord's money. Right. After a long time, the Lord of those servants cometh and reckoneth with them. And so he that had received 5 talents came and brought other 5 talents, saying, Lord, right, thou deliverest unto me 5 talents. Behold, I have gained besides them 5 talents more. His Lord said unto him, well done. So this is an example of an individual that grew in the truth. He started out base level, and then over a process of time, through experience and suffering, he started to grow. His faith increased. He understood the job. He was fully persuaded. He was assured of the things he learned, right? He understood the consequences of not flipping the talents. Continuing on, it says, his Lord said unto him, this is Yahushua talking to a faithful servant, because not every guy is a faithful servant. If you around an individual that don't do 3 videos a week, and it's like constant, they always doing that, you go on their channel, months ago they did lessons, or they feel like, look, I already did this lesson 10 years ago, I don't need to defend the gospel no more, then in your mind, you should be kind of looking at that individual sideways. Like, how come, ain't nobody get a pass to be lazy with the truth? It goes on to say, his Lord said unto him, well done, thou good and faithful servant. Thou hast been faithful over a few things. I will make thee ruler over many things, because that's what Yahushua told his faithful believers when you read Revelation, the 2nd chapter. He that overcometh, will I make a pillar in the house of my God. Meaning what? You're going to be one of the chief rulers, after the 12 disciples, of course, and Yahushua above them in the kingdom of heaven, right? It goes on to say, yep, enter thou into the joy of thy Lord, right? Getting them new bodies, everything that's associated with the new covenant, being perfect, being immortal, being a God. In order for you to be a God, you got to know good and evil. We're learning the evil side right now. It says, and he also that had received 2 talents came and said, Lord, thou deliverest unto me 2 talents. This is a guy that didn't even get 5 talents, right? He just got 2. He was content with that. He wasn't trying to make himself equal with a man that got 5 talents or that's greater than him. And what he did, behold, I have gained 2 other talents besides them. So this was a guy that understood what he was a part of. And with the little bit of knowledge that he had, he still grew and he remained faithful. And he brought other believers in through the will of Yahweh and Yahushua. 23, his Lord said unto him, well done, good and faithful servant. Thou hast been faithful over a few things, right? A few things, 2 talents that he flipped and made it 4. I will make thee a ruler over many things, enter thou into the joy of thy Lord, right? Because we all going to get the same penny. It says, then he which had received the 1 talent, here's the negative example, right? The 1 talent came and said, Lord, I knew thee that thou art an hard man, right? An austere man, reaping where thou hast not sown and gathering where thou hast not strawed, right? And I was afraid and went and hid thy talent, right? He knew he was an Israelite, but he kept the knowledge to himself. He didn't make his body a sacrifice, a living sacrifice, which is his reasonable service. You don't know what the God looks like. He just commenting. It goes on to say, in the earth, lo, there thou hast that is done. It says, his Lord answered and said unto him, thou wicked and slothful servant. So, a lot of you guys, you've been watching for years, and you get comments like this, oh, I've been watching for 9 years. It's like, damn, when the fuck is this dude going to come around and we can see, like, who he is? Because we all get to that point if you're a man of the Lord, right? When is he going to do videos showing his face? When is people going to be able to hear his lessons? You can't just be commenting forever. You got to get active. You got to get your hands and your feet dirty, right? Because, that's what we doing. You think brothers that's in the camp, you think we all started out like that? Me, myself, I never would have thought I was a prophet of the Lord. I used to watch the videos and be like, damn, that could never be me. You got these scoffers all in their face. You know, it's snowing, it's brick ass cold. And then the more the Lord opened up my understanding, I understood, damn, I gotta fucking get out there. I can't be a lazy ass individual that honor the Lord with lip service, you know, being a man pleaser. I can't just be watching the videos and just paying tithes only as an Israelite man. The Lord is compelling me in the spirit, meaning he's calling me to come to the camp, right? Now, it's different, you know, type of Israelites. Not everybody's a prophet, but in your spirit, if the Lord is compelling you and you feel that urge to do lessons, you know, to come out to the camp, then what are you waiting for? Time is short, man. It says, thou orders therefore to have put my money to the exchanges, right, to flip it, and then at my coming I should have received my own way usury. Exactly. He gave you the investment, which is the truth. You're supposed to flip it, be active, and then give our Lord what? A double portion, right? That's why he gave you the money. That's why he gave you the original investment. It says, take therefore the talent from him, right? The guy that got one talent that didn't do nothing with it, right? He hid it in the earth. Meaning what? He was partying and chilling with the people in the world, right? He didn't put his time and effort into this truth. He wasn't balancing his time accordingly by putting Yahweh and Yahushua first. He was doing everything else, putting his job first, putting his family first, putting his woman first, right? Putting his personal selfish desires first. And he didn't even make time for the truth. It says, take therefore the talent from him and give it unto him which have 10 talents, right? The guy that you know is going to actually do something with it. You got Israelites that like to flex knowledge on other Israelites, but then when you go to their page or you ask them, like, do a video on it so that we can all be edified and understand like how you understand, they can't do it. Why? Because they seek in vainglory. You got to be careful of those type of Israelites as well. You know what topic, you fluent in it, do a damn video on it then, since you know so much. It says, for unto everyone that have shall be given, and he shall have abundance, but from him that have not shall be taken away even that which he had. And that's why guys fall off, because they're not doing nothing. Yeah, we may understand you've been around for years or even a short time, you know, with the basics, but you got to put that information out there. Because if you just keeping it to yourself and you're not sharing with the believers, in which that's what Yahushua commanded, then there's no point in you having this knowledge anymore. And that's where the evil, wicked spirits come upon guys, and they get offended, they get emotional, and they stop teaching. And cast ye the unprofitable servant, right? The guy that don't know how to flip the talents, the lazy, ashamed individual, the guy that makes excuses up, right? The unprofitable servant into outer darkness. There shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth. So that's what's going to happen. They're going to be judged with the world. Now, I had one to read this, right? Now, this is Luke 19:11. It's the same thing, but here it's called the parable of money usage. It says, and as they heard these things, he added and spake a parable, because and what's a parable? A parable is a dark saying, not easily understood, right? It's like kind of speaking subliminally in a sense. Like, you talking about one thing, but the way how you wording it is not like direct, right? Because that's what it says in Matthew the 13th chapter. Unto you is given to know the mysteries of the kingdom of heaven, but unto them it is not given, right? So that's why it's written in a parable, so that only the elect of the nation of Israel understand the parable, because the parable is for them to understand, as well as the believers, which is a part of the elect. All right. So Luke 19:11, and as he heard these things, he added and spake a parable, because he was nigh to Jerusalem, and because they thought that the kingdom of Yahweh Bahashem Yahushai should immediately appear, right? Because that's what the disciples want to know. They want to know, when is the kingdom going to be established? And then what did the Lord tell them after his resurrection, pretty much? Acts the 1st chapter. You're going to have to prophesy again. He told a lot of prophets that. He told John the Revelator that. That's one prophet. He told Daniel, you're going to stay in your lot in the end of days. And that was way before the Roman Empire. That's another reincarnation, right? Isaiah, the 12 disciples, the different men of the Lord, Apostle Paul waiting for that crown of righteousness. So you can see that back during those specific generations, it wasn't time for the kingdom to be established yet, because the Edomites, they were coming to three final rulerships pretty much: the Greek Empire, the Roman Empire, and now we in the leg of the ancient Roman Empire in the form of America and the EU, which is ran by who? The Edomites, right? So now we know that we're in the time of the end, because we all together on the planet Earth are companion of prophets, prophesying the downfall of the most wicked kingdom in earth, Babylon the Great, which is America. So it goes on to say, Luke 19:12, he said, therefore, a certain nobleman went into a far country to receive for himself a kingdom and to return, right? That nobleman is Yahushua, right? And he called his 10 servants, which will equal the elect of the nation of Israel. It says, and delivered them 10 pounds and said unto them, occupy till I come. I love this scripture. I'm going to go into this word, occupy, all right? You're supposed to be occupying. You ain't supposed to, oh, well, the apostles did the video on it, so I don't got to do it. Or I'm going to just leave that to the elders to do it. I'm going to leave it to the brothers that is known for doing videos. I'm going to leave it for them to do it. You know, nah, you do the video too. You know, land back. So this is the Greek word for occupy. I'm going to let the word play.
Strong's G 4231. Pragmatuomai. Pragmatuomai.
Right. Let's go down there. Yep. To busy oneself with, i.e. to trade, occupy. You're supposed to be occupying with this truth. You're supposed to be growing, right? Let's go down here. Biblical usage, to be occupied in anything. Sticking to the subject, man, let's talk about what? This truth, right? How can you defend the gospel? There's so many different ways to defend the gospel, right? To carry on the business. This is our business. This is our reasonable service unto death. What is it going to lead to? Being made wise unto salvation, immortality, being a pillar in the Most High's house, right? To carry on the business of a banker, right? Who's the banker? Yahushua, right? And he gave us the money, the investment, all right, to build. Or a trader. Let's keep it going. You know what? I'm going to read this in the NLT now. Luke 19:13, NLT version. Before he left, he called together 10 of his servants and divided among them 10 pounds of silver, saying, invest this, right? Meaning occupy this for me while I am going, right? Yahushua, he's on the right hand of the Father right now. He left, beginning with the apostles, a great millstone, because we don't want to make ourselves with great men, right? He left us in charge, on down to young brothers like myself. But his people hated him and sent a delegation after him to say, we do not want him to be our king. After he was crowned king, he returned and called in the servants to whom he had given the money. He wanted to find out what their profits were. The first servant reported, Master, I invested your money and made 10 times the original amount. That's what you want to be doing, all right? The longer you're in the truth, you're supposed to grow. You're supposed to know what type of videos to do. It says, well done. This is what I want Yahushua to say to me. Well done. The king explained, you are a good servant, right? Good and faithful servant. You have been faithful with the little I entrusted to you. So you will be governor of 10 cities as your reward. The next servant reported, Master, I invested your money and made 5 times the original amount. Well done, the king said. You will be governor over 5 cities, right? Because this is going to apply to what? The kingdom of heaven. It says, but the third servant brought back only the original amount of money, right? This is a bad example. And said, Master, I hid your money and kept it safe. I was afraid because you are a hard man to deal with, taking what isn't yours. But Yahushua is not a hard man to deal with. He's austere, meaning there's a specific way how he wants it done. He gives the order, accomplish the task, right? So this is a wicked ass individual to say that he's a hard man to deal with. Let me read that in the KJV. KJV says, "For I fear thee because thou art an austere man." Let's go into this word austere.
Strong's G 840. Austeros. Austeros.
Yeah, rough. All right. Severe, austere. Of mind and manners, harsh, rough, rigid. There's a certain way the king want it done. You think a king is going to be soft? No. He give you the task, get it done. It says, "Thou takest up that thou layest not down, and reapest that thou didst not sow." Switching back to the NLT, Luke 19:21. "I was afraid because you are a hard man to deal with, taking what isn't yours and harvesting crops you didn't plant." This is what Yahushua said to this wicked individual that made an excuse. "You wicked servant," the king roared. "Your own words condemn you. If you knew that I am a hard man, aka austere, right, who takes what isn't mine and harvests crops I didn't plant, why didn't you deposit my money in the bank?" Meaning, if you knew you wasn't going to do nothing with the original investment, why not just give it back to the investor, right? It says, "At least I could have gotten some interest on it." Then turning to the others standing nearby, the king ordered, "Take the money from the servant and give it to the one who has 10 pounds. Why? Because he flipped the 5, right? Turn it into 10. So you know he could get the job done. You could entrust him with the money, with the investment. But master, right? The master is Yahushua. They said he already has 10 pounds. "Yes," the king replied, "and to those who use well what they are given, even more will be given." Because Yahushua can count on that individual to what? Keep on growing, keep on flipping it, right? AKA the knowledge that they have, keep on growing in it and defending the gospel on every aspect, right? But from those who do nothing, right? Haven't done videos in months. You feel like you've been around for so long, now you don't got to defend the gospel because you feel like you already know the topic so many times. You feel like Yahushua ain't coming back fast enough, meaning these prophecies not happening fast enough. It says, even what little they have will be taken away. And that's what happens to individuals. Last one, Luke 19:27. "And as for these enemies of mine who didn't want me to be their king," wicked Israelites, right? "Bring them in and execute them right here in front of me." So that's what's going to happen to you wicked individuals, all right? You're going to be a part of the lake of fire. So that's pretty much it. You know, we got to remain diligent, consistent, and remember, as individuals, we on earth to glorify Yahweh and Yahushua. Nothing else matters to Yahweh and Yahushua. Your personal life, your accolades, your status in the society. The Most High gave you that status. So that's pretty much it. Lord, when he was edified, Shalom.